Hello, film fans. Welcome to the Film vs. Film podcast. My name is Martin Harries, your host, and I'm joined by the film encyclopedia man, Boaz Dix. We are a couple of filmmakers on occasion, but mainly can't stop yapping about movies. On this podcast, every episode we pick a topic from a film that's coming out at the cinema or on VOD. Myself and Boaz pick our favourite film from that topic, or team up against a guest and battle it out to decide which film will become the greatest film of all time. If you enjoy this podcast, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Please enjoy part 2. The Choose Film Podcast. Gary, what is your pick for Sylvester Stallone films?
Well, it has to be Rocky, doesn't it? Like, it was really funny because I thought you guys were going to pick Rocky, so I picked Demolition Man. And I was like, no, what if they don't pick Rocky? Okay, I'll pick Rocky. And then Goose picked Demolition Man. So Amazing. It worked out perfectly to talk about both these films.
Amazing. You've seen what you wanted to see. That's great.
Yes.
So when we met earlier in the week, you showed us your Rocky poster. So I'm guessing Rocky is, very important film for you. Tell us a little bit about why it's so important.
I mean, I used to do boxing, as I said earlier, and Rocky got me into it. But whether you do boxing or anything else, just that underdog story, like where we try and achieve something, but maybe we're like below a certain level, everything, we just inspire to be better at it. And it's just the perfect underdog story, isn't it? Like, it's so well crafted. But I will say, I loved it because, it's like boxing and in the ring, and it's gone back to that, that testosterone, muscles and fitness and energy. But actually, as I've got older, I've looked at Rocky with new eyes, which I'll go into a wee bit more as we talk about it. But to me, it's not a boxing film. It's not a sports film. It's a love story.
Yeah.
And I now see it much more of that, but I'll talk about it when we go into the screenplay and stuff like that.
So what happens in Rocky, Gary?
I've said it's a love story, so I'll try and do the synopsis of that. So while I was trying to find the courage to ask a girl out on a date, down on his luck, Rocky is given the chance of a lifetime to fight the heavyweight champion of the world. And in the end, he finds courage to do both.
Nice.
Very concise. I like it.
Yeah.
If you learn a thing or two, Boaz, there you go.
Martin, fuck you. There we go. That was concise.
That is a violation of the morality statute. Right. I mean, initial reactions, Boaz? Have you seen this before? Seen it loads of times?
No, not seen it before, actually.
Really? Wow.
So I've watched Rocky 5. Yeah, I think that's the one I'm trying to fucking remember now. Yeah, Rocky 5. Yeah, I watched Rocky 5, Balboa, and Creed. Those are the only ones I've watched.
So what did you make of it then, this one?
Yeah, man, I loved it. I thought it was great.
Such a sweet film.
Gary, I mean, when you first saw it, and now, what are your thoughts on it?
It's an interesting one because I think as a kid watching it, I was like, oh, this is like the boring one. Not a lot happens until like the training montage at the end.
Yeah.
So I was like, I kind of almost watched Rocky to go and watch like Rocky 2 and Rocky 3 and Rocky 4, Because I'm one of these people as well that if I want to watch Rocky 4, you can't just go and watch Rocky 4. You have to watch like Rocky 1, 2, and
the first 3 first.
Yeah, with any franchise, I'm like that. That's why I never go back and start watching Marvel again. It'll be there all day. If I want to watch Guardians of the Galaxy, it is a challenge. But yeah, and then as I've got older, I was like, oh, this film is just full of heart in like so many different ways. I also like the ideas of other small challenges in the film, like being shy with the Adrian character, or there's wee elements in there about, like family and what family means to you. I mean, like Paulie is like Rocky's best friend through the full franchise, but he's got a drinking problem, and he doesn't treat his sister very nice, but she still loves him, and they've got respect for each other in different ways. There's so much in it, through the full franchise that all of that grows with it, which is interesting. So yeah, it's just a nice heartwarming film.
This film is fascinating, really, especially watching it as an adult now, because certainly when I watched it as a kid, it's you see it as a sports film. As you say, you wait until that last fight, who's going to win. Is it going to be Rocky? Is it going to be Apollo Creed? That kind of thing. As you say, there's so much more nuance to this film. I would still say it is a sports movie, but it doesn't do sports movie things at all, really.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't have those stereotypical aspects to it. And yes, I guess as the franchise goes on, it definitely creates those stereotypes, I guess, for itself, especially in boxing films. So yeah, there's a lot to get into. Yeah, I really love this film, actually, especially watching it now.
And it also, I don't know if everyone knows this, but basically a rough, true story on Sylvester Stallone's life, only as an actor, and he wasn't getting the jobs. He was I think he actually started working in porn because he couldn't get proper acting jobs. And then they tried to just buy the script off him. He refused that. He was like, no, I'm starring in this. So it's a real underdog story with even fighting with the heads of the money, to keep himself in this and get that chance. So yeah, there's lots of interesting stuff. Even in the film was made for peanuts at the time, absolutely nothing, to the point where the guy that rings the bell is Sylvester Stallone's dad, the lead singer, and see the homeless crowd around the bins that are singing along at the start. That's Frank Stallone. That's Sylvester Stallone's brother, who is also, he's a singer. So that kind of helped his career as well, is just doing that. So there's a lot of family bits in this as well.
So directing then, there's not many directional moments that pop out at me, to be honest. There's one, other than obviously the last final fight, but there's one that I think is quite interesting where Rocky is accepted to fight and Mickey comes to his apartment wanting to be his manager. And Rocky just nods away, doesn't really listen to him, and locks himself in his toilet. And Mickey eventually leaves. And then Rocky lets out all his rage, ranting at him like, "Oh, so now you want to be my manager, huh? Don't go telling me about your prime. What about my prime?" And, it goes on and on and on for quite a long time, that longer than feels natural. And Mickey hears him on the stairs, looking all guilty. But then a big wide shot appears when Rocky comes out to meet Mickey on the street to apologize and to, agree to be his manager and his trainer. And it's really interesting that we don't get to hear what was said there, and the filmmakers keep that private. And it's like just his actions are enough after quite a talky scene. So I really like that. I really love that scene, actually. The contrast of all this this barrage of hate that Rocky is giving Mickey, and then all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but he turns his tune kind of thing, but with no words at all. He does it with his actions. So I thought it was a really beautifully done scene with just that one wide shot.
I've got to say, I'm going to put my hands up. It's my favourite shot in the full franchise.
Oh, really?
And to the point, I'm going to confess now, obviously I do filmmaking as well, and I basically stole that shot in one of my films. So I had these two characters have a big argument in each other's faces. One of them storms out, right? And then I just cut to a wide shot of the street, and then the other one comes out after them, apologises, and then the two of them walk back inside. And I think it's great that we don't get to hear what they say. We don't need to. It's great. Less is more, I think. We're speaking about exposition when we were talking about Demolition Man. What I love is we don't need to hear it, because the fact that, they hug it out, they shake each other's hand, and Rocky gives them a wave. We know they're in good terms. It doesn't matter what they said to get there. It's just great visual storytelling. Yeah. Actually, in a way, it's probably, if it's like that in the script, I don't know, but in a way, it's great for a screenplay as well. To not let us hear it. Sometimes even with scripts, it's not maybe what's written in dialogue; it's maybe what's written about how we're not going to hear it.
Well, I think it's one of those, what was it? The human mind, you can make up, anybody can make up the sweetest poetry or whatever that they probably said to each other, or the nicest things.
Yeah.
You don't have to, do you know what I mean? You don't have to write that, come up with the best thing to say or the best apology. You can just use your imagination or whatever, come up with something better.
I always come back to that last scene in Lost in Translation where
I knew you were going to say that, yeah.
Bill Murray whispers into Scarlett Johansson's ear, and you don't know what's said after the whole film.
And I was like, that's a great way to end it, because it means a lot. But if they say it, then it might never match what you've got in your head. Do you know what I mean? You're like, man, I could have come up with something better. But if you just don't say it, and just let people, come up with their own.
Obviously, the iconic training montage scene is really great, where Rocky runs up the museum steps. But my favorite shots from that is kind of like the close-up shot on Rocky hitting like the little bouncy bag. I don't know what that's called, Gary.
Speedball. A speedball.
Speedball, there you go.
Yeah.
Bouncy bag sounds better. You can see his face through the bag, when it's going really fast. I quite like that. My favorite shot, though, I think in that montage is when like Rocky starts like jogging along the harbor and then runs faster and faster and faster. And I'm like, Tom Cruise, eat your eye out.
That actually wasn't meant to be in the montage, if I remember correctly.
Really?
That was they were driving past it. And I think the director was just like, Stallone, jump out and run. And, they just filmed it from the car, basically.
Amazing.
And I think they actually had to add extra notes, like to Bill Conti, that's who's the musician, brilliant music as well. He had to like go and like try and get extra notes in for it and stuff. So
another shot I really liked is during the quiet moment before the fight starts, where Rocky visits the arena where the fight is going to be held. Like the camera zooms out from Apollo Creed's poster and Rocky walks around the ring, which feels like a really long time, just with like a side profile of Rocky taking in this stadium. And the shot ends by looking at his own poster and notices his shorts are the wrong color. This film like definitely is in some ways about like self-respect, and even a huge event like this, they can't even get his poster right. Like all the focus for the fight is on Apollo Creed, putting on a good show for the promoter. The scene is really simple to create this sense of, it's Rocky against the world kind of thing. No one's really interested in Rocky in this fight. It's all about Apollo Creed, beating this bum from Philadelphia. It's not like a particularly short scene either. They do commit quite a lot of time to that, which I quite like.
there's some other really nice things that I don't know if people will notice first time round, but Rocky carries a bouncy ball, and every time something doesn't kind of go right, or he has to bite his tongue, or he's been spoken to in a bad way, it's like a stress ball to him, I think. It's like, rather than saying it. So it happens when he's waiting in Gazzo, so he's a bit nervous waiting on him to get into the car, and he's bouncing the ball on the bridge, and then after Gazzo gives him into trouble for not breaking the guy's thumbs, he has a bouncy ball. Same with little Marie. When she says, "Screw you, creepo," and walks into the house, he's kind of like a bit taken back, so he's got the ball out again. And I quite like that idea of it's visual storytelling again, rather than simply going, "Oh, I'm really nervous after that. I'm feeling really awkward." It's like, we'll use the bouncy ball to demonstrate that.
Yeah, I do like little details like that enhance character. It's nothing that I actually picked out myself, but it's definitely a subconscious thing when you're watching it, that, a lot of, certainly the first half of the film, he uses the stress ball quite a lot, and a lot of things aren't really going right. And then, second half of the film, you don't see the ball very much at all. So that's a good spot there.
It comes back in Rocky 5 because he has to move back to the old neighbourhood. So he's looking through all his old stuff and finds it. And then when he's back on those streets, he's got the ball again, which I found a nice wee homage to as well.
Cool, mate, yeah. So do you remember when Paulie gets like really drunk, like really drunk, and they're at Paulie's house, like, watching the TV and stuff, and it's doing like wide, kind of wide shots, and you can hear him, and he's just like singing to himself, and just all that stuff, and he gets to his door, and then the next shot they have it of Adrian and Rocky watching the TV. And they got a shot like on them both watching the TV with the the hallway behind them, and they're wondering what the hell they should do about Paulie, because he's like, he's just out of control. He keeps asking me all this nonsense. I'm not exactly sure what I can do for him, and I just like how like Paulie comes in at that moment, and the camera's just stuck on that moment, but that Paulie's coming in while they're talking about him, and he hasn't made his presence known. But like you just see him come in through the front door and just kind of quietly walk across, and they're still talking about him, and then he just bursts in like, I don't need anything from you, and he just kind of loses his temper. I thought that was done really well, of just having this set up and just having Paulie come across them talking about him and them not noticing.
I also like how they show that Rocky isn't very clever, and it's wee subtle things, like when he takes Adrian ice skating, and then she says it's like nighttime. It's clearly nighttime, and she says, "I think it's closed," and he says, "I think we're just early," or something like that. And it's like, well, clearly not. Another part of that, he's like negotiating with the manager, and he's like, $10, you have the ice to yourself, and he goes, right, okay, as if the guy's doing him a favour, like saying you have the ice to yourself, as if he won't let anyone up. It's closed. He was always going to have it to himself. And he thinks it's okay.
No, that's a good point, because, he could have negotiated way lower. Because he's like, 6, no, 10, no, 9, 8. He's like 10 and you get the ice to yourself. It's I think you make a good point. It's like, nobody's going to come in here. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. And even that part as well, where he basically says, like, look at Adrian, like, you can tell she's not very well. You need to let her on the ice. And I'm like, that's basically the girl you're trying to like go out with, and you're slagging her, saying she's and when she's not ill, but he doesn't understand that that's not okay.
Yeah.
I also love the wee part where he keeps the locker combination in his hat at the start, like wee things like that as well, where he can't remember his own locker combination. Yeah,
I think my favourite shot is probably the final fight. I think for me, I don't think there's anything particularly special about the directing on the final fight, but if anything, the direction isn't particularly very intense. It's almost not very dramatic at times. There's a lot of shots with some super long lenses and you feel like you're part of the crowd. There's no like suspense building really. For me, it's all about how it feels taking these punches. And I'm not a boxing expert, but the fighting doesn't feel particularly realistic. It feels like a slugfest, and I don't mind that at all. It's all about the emotions all out there on show. The end of the fight is so underplayed with two guys that can barely stand up, and I like it how it doesn't glamorize it at all. But for me, the most impressive thing in this film is the iconic music. When he's screaming Adrian at the end and they say they love each other at the end, the music is the thing that sets me off. I didn't think I would cry when I watched this film, but it somehow does, and it's the music, it's the music that makes me teary.
First film I ever cried at was Rocky 3, which I don't really want to spoil, but it's to do with Mickey. If you have seen it, you know exactly the scene I'm talking about. But it's the music and that scene as well. Oh, great musician.
Yeah, Conti.
Bill Conti.
Bill Conti, yeah. It's interesting with the music because they very much leave it for the end and the montage scene, but there's really interesting little like flourishes that he goes for. Certainly when things aren't going great with him and Adrian. So I do like the fact that it's used very, very sparingly until the last few scenes.
Just on the music actually as well. So John, I'll never pronounce this right. The director is John Avildsen. Who then went on to do another famous sports film about an underdog who has an old mentor. Can you think what it is?
Karate Kid.
Yes, yeah. And Bill Conti did the music for that as well, and that's got its iconic training montages as well.
No surprises there. I mean, what do you think about the final fight as well? Certainly for me, it's very emotional. We're not really directed, very fancy. If you know what I mean, it's very underplayed and not very dramatic. Do you get that sense, or
it's quite raw?
Yeah.
I think my favorite part of it was his first hit against Apollo. Not so much his last, not so much the end, but his first punch against Apollo. That was good because Apollo's just kind of, just dominating him, like just giving him little love taps. He's not taking it very seriously. And then when he just floors him, he just floors Apollo with a uppercut, and just, the camera cutting to like his friends at the bar, like, holy shit. And, the commentators are like, oh my God, he's been knocked down. Apollo Creed getting back up and just being like, you can see it in his face, like, what the fuck? Okay, no, I got to start taking this. Like,
I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it again.
Yeah. So I love that part of the fight. His first hit, that felt like a huge moment.
I also like the fact as well where they want to stop the fight, but he won't let it because he just wants to go the distance. And he has to get his eye cut open as well for it. I quite like that because the makeup looks real.
Well, I like that with the dialogue because they're both like determined. And he's like, you got to lay him out in this one to Apollo, and it's like, don't you dare stop the fight. And Rocky's like, if you stop that fight, I'll fucking kill you.
Yeah.
Like, I've got just like literally just a couple of minutes left. Just let me do it.
What's your favourite scene then, Boaz? Is it the final fight as well, or the montage?
I think it might be the montage. It's a very famous montage. I obviously knew about it. I've seen it parodied to hell. But it is actually genuinely an amazing montage,
Yeah.
In the actual source of the film, you're like, holy shit, this is actually really good. You're like, da 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 da.
I love the reference in Creed as well, when like Michael B. Jordan is doing press ups in the hospital when he is ill, and he's like, he's using both hands, and he's like, yeah, I used to do that with one hand,
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
Directing score, Boaz, what should we go with? I mean, I really like just kind of the simplicity of it and how underplayed that final fight is. The camera shots and the cutting is fairly simple. Yeah, it's just really unique. You don't really often see, boxing matches shot like that in a movie. Certainly nowadays.
The little bits I've seen with, the other Rocky films, and, I told you I watched Creed. I mean, they sex up the choreography a lot more, and the camera angles and the super slow motion and all that. I think this is just the fact that it was on a budget. Still a great prototype for, I think, better fights to come.
Yeah.
But, still just a prototype. That's how I think you should sort of view it. It's their first time doing this on a,
But it still works really well, I think.
Still pretty good, yeah.
8.7?
8.7.
8.5?
Yeah, 8.5 sounds, I think, better to me.
Gary, what are you going for?
I would probably go 8.5 as well, to be fair.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on a budget, as you guys says, but they do what they can to elevate it. And when you can't maybe elevate production value, it's the other wee things we've spoken about, like that shot, like with no dialogues, like how we're going to do that and frame it, and it's really nice. The bouncy ball, stuff like that. All of these wee small things is part of directing as well, to get that emotion across, and I think it does it well.
Screenplay, then. I quite like the opening scene of this film because it pretty much echoes what happens in the last fight. But obviously the last fight is on a larger scale. Rocky is getting his ass kicked, and then something happens to piss him off. In the first fight, it's the fact that the opponent headbutts him.
Yeah, he headbutts him. Yeah, I remember that.
And then Rocky knocks him out easily. But the main difference is when Rocky wins at the beginning, most of the crowd are booing, and even one woman says, "You're a bum." And at the end, Rocky loses, everyone's cheering him. The emotions are completely flipped. I just quite like the contrast there.
Just when you're saying like she calls him a bum, what I love about this film is Rocky wants to win this fight, right? Obviously, that would be tremendous if he won, but that's not his goal. That's not his aim. His aim is to be still standing at the end of it, to know himself that he says himself, he's not another bum from the neighbourhood. He wants to be at least respected in this boxing. Doesn't care about winning, he just wants the respect that he can achieve, in life. And again, just tying it to Stallone, I don't think Sylvester Stallone, he would love to win an Oscar, but I don't think it was ever his goal to win the Oscar. It was to be respected in the industry. And guess what? Rocky went and won an Oscar, didn't it? So,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Still should have won for Thingy, though. For Creed.
Yeah. Propelled him into superstardom. So.
Yeah. I mean, I always find it interesting when writers of sport films decide to make the protagonist lose at the end. Another great one that comes to mind is Coach Carter. The basketball team loses at the end, but they gain their kind of self-respect. I think, that film takes a lot from this movie. The film definitely gives you like slight glimpses that Rocky might win this match.
Yeah.
But Apollo and Rocky both tell us that Apollo is gonna win for sure.
Yeah.
Yet watching it, we don't believe them. I love how this film makes you believe them in a way, because we always want a victorious end, but it's definitely still a happy ending, because whoever won the fight is not it's not the point of the film at all. Rocky just wants some self-respect from the people that judge him. More importantly, he wants self-respect. But before the fight, he's talking to Adrian on his bed, basically saying he knows he's going to lose. Yep. And if the fight goes to a split decision, there's no way the judges are going to pick Rocky. Rocky knows this. Rocky just wants to show that could have been a contender and basically put up a fight. That's it. It was never about winning or losing for Rocky. So I really like that little speech he has with Adrian before he just wants to go the distance for his own self-respect.
I think as well, though, like, I mean, they speak about it more in Rocky 2, but like it's the bell that saves Apollo. Like the bell goes, and it's like if that was actually maybe just a fight with like no rules, like Rocky might have actually beaten him. So it's quite interesting. But in a way, from what I said at the start about this not being a boxing film, but being a love story, what I think's interesting is if you watch any film or if you do any screenwriting, like the turning point in the film has to be usually in the first 10 minutes of it. So like if it was Jurassic Park, it is them get invited to Jurassic Park, Alan Grant happens in the first 10 minutes. Star Wars, it's like, Luke Skywalker's aunt and uncle are killed, so off he goes.
Barbecued. Yeah.
It takes a good 40 minutes, or maybe even longer than that, for Rocky to be asked to fight the champion. Yeah. And that's where it comes back to being a love story. But in the first 10 minutes, he gets the courage to go and visit Adrian in the pet store, ask her out on a date. And then the film is about them two trying to become like an item. And you can talk about how the fight gets in the way, Polly gets in the way, the fact she's shy and he's a bit stupid gets in the way. But then by the end of it, what does he win? He wins. She says, I love you. I love you too. So he wins the girl, So I think that's where it's like, yes, there is a winning element at the end. It's just not the fight.
I agree with that.
And if we take that forward, and this is why I love this franchise, and I'll try not to spoil anything, but so if the first one's about, two people meeting and falling in love, the second one is about family, they have a baby, but also it's about trying to provide for your family. And that one in, like, because he's no longer wanting to fight. Then Rocky 3 is all about pride and how that affects the relationship, and she has to be the tough one and tell him to get his ass in gear. But then in the fourth one, Adrian can't comprehend why Rocky wants to fight Ivan Drago, but she'll still support him. It's about trying to find how she can still support him in that. Rocky 5 is all about finance issues, and Rocky Balboa, I guess, is about ill health and death and loss and rage of death, and what do you do with that rage? And then, like, I guess you look at Creed, and that's like almost like mentor and fatherhood and things as well. So there is this real family dynamic across the full franchise. And then there's also boxing.
It's not about boxing, it's about life. They just happen to be boxers.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. It's interesting as well, the decision that Adrian doesn't watch the fight, I don't think. She's just in his changing room or in the corridor or whatever.
And she can hear it, which is interesting.
That's an interesting decision, that she's not really willing to watch him do it, just waiting until he's made the distance.
Yeah, there's that really interesting part where I think it is when Rocky knocks down Apollo and she hears the crowd roar, but she doesn't quite know for whom. And there's this like look of worry on her face, and I just it was great.
Nice. I like her. I was just going to say, I like her like evolution as a character, and their relationship. Because she is so like nervous and really shy around people. But I just love how like ever so gradually she kind of opens up, and she's a lot more expressive and confident and passionate and stuff like that. I think she has a good arc.
Yep.
I think the big turning point in their relationship is that skating date that you mentioned earlier, Gary. It's very cute and weird at the same time. Rocky is explaining to her what a southpaw is and how he broke both of his hands in a fight. Not really the sort of things you say in a date, but there we go. And he whips out a picture of himself that doesn't look very good. And you're like, this is kind of cute, but there's no connection there, really. Adrian is still very shy. Rocky then says, his old man said to him, you better learn to use your body because you got no brains.
Yep.
And then Adrian says the opposite. Her mother said to her, you haven't got much of a body, so you better develop your brain. And then Rocky's face like lights up and he's loving it. I feel like that is a big turning point in their kind of relationship, that there's a strong connection there after that, subtly.
Yeah, before that bit of dialogue, I was getting the sense that she was not really listening to him. Like, he was just droning on, and she's like, just doing her thing, and they've got nothing in common. But I agree. Like, as soon as he said that line, my father said, work on your body because you haven't got a brain. And then she laughs, and then I'm like, oh God, she was listening to him. And then she responds, as you said, with the opposite. And then you're like, oh, okay, they got a connection here. And that's what it makes it believable.
Yeah, I think another turning point for that character as well is when she finally stands up to Polly, because before that, when Rocky's been offered to fight Apollo and they're watching the news press on it, and Polly's like, do you want help with training and all that? And he's like, nobody cared about me before, I'm going to do it myself. And Polly's quite pissed off, and Adrian says, do you want me to get you a beer? And he just like yells at her, stay out of my way. Then later, when she actually fights back, she's like, I pick up your dirty clothes, I cook for you, I clean for you. And then she finally says, do you want a roommate, to Rocky? That's her character up there, I think, as well. It's a really nice scene. She finally stands up for herself. Not because she's got a man to protect her, but maybe it is this lease of life that being with Rocky has brought out in her.
I find the character of Paulie really interesting. I feel like in some way he's kind of like the representation of Philadelphia at that time, like how a lot of the people were feeling, in the 70s America, especially in Philadelphia. And it's interesting. I mean, I'm a big NFL fan, and I watched this documentary when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, and there is still quite a strong sense of poverty in Philadelphia, even now. When they win the Super Bowl in 2017 or something. So it's just a really interesting side of American culture back then.
They make some damn good fine cream cheese, though.
Yeah, but it's just interesting that you get a very strong sense of what Philadelphia is like, especially compared to a lot of the other cities that you see. There's a big contrast of that. It's not very glamorous at all, but there are some beautiful elements in there with the on the top of the museum steps. I feel like Paulie is kind of the embodiment of Philadelphia in a way. Maybe it's a bit of a stretch, but yeah.
He's the 70s struggling everyday man, isn't he?
Working man, yeah.
Yeah, and things because he's struggling with working in the meat factory, even before Rocky has been offered to fight, he's asking him, going to get me in with Gazzo to make extra money. I can break thumbs, basically, I think does he not say breaking thumbs don't bother me much, and things like that. So he's kind of yes, he's obviously somebody that's struggling. You can tell with the house as well. It's not a very well kept house. It looks quite old and dated. But he's a bit of a leech. Any way you can see of finding money, he'll try and take it.
Another character I find really interesting is Apollo Creed, actually, played by Carl Weathers. He's not particularly very villainous, I don't think. He's actually a fairly likable character. He's very passionate about boxing. He wants to put on a show for Philadelphia. Yes, there's definitely an element of arrogance there, but I mean, he's a boxer. You kind of have to have that. So, yeah, it's just interesting. He's not very villainous, in my opinion, as the opponent to Rocky.
He's Muhammad Ali, right, if we're honest?
Yeah, pretty much.
He is Muhammad Ali. And actually, Joe Frazier, the boxer, is in this film. What's interesting is Muhammad Ali won the title off of Joe Frazier. Yeah. So, and then when that happens, the heavyweight title at that time would go in and shake hands with the new fighters. So basically you could fit that into the timeline, and you could either go, you could watch boxing up to that point, and then in a different universe, it's Muhammad Ali, and in this universe, it's the story of Apollo. So, great showmanship. I love how they utilise his character in future films as well, because he is likeable. You do like him in this. And you can see he's kind of hurt as well during the fight, as in emotionally scarred, because he's a performer, whereas Rocky is he's just the tank, isn't he? He's the bull in it, trying to win this, whereas he's as you said, showmanship and the entertainer of it, crowd pleaser.
There's a great line that's basically, made me think of Muhammad Ali completely, is when he says, I think on the TV, he says, stay in school and use your brain, be a doctor, be a lawyer, carry a leather briefcase, forget about sports as a profession, sports make you grunt and smell, be a thinker, not a stinker.
Yeah.
What was great about that scene in the bar is, so this, I think this is before he's issued his challenge, and the barman is bad-mouthing Apollo Creed. He's like, look at this guy, and all this stuff. He doesn't know what it's like and all this stuff. And, he's mouthing off. And it's Rocky that supports him. He's like, are you talking about Apollo Creed? Are you out of your mind? This man made it from nothing. And he's like, got tremendous respect for him. And I think they could have done it like the obvious route and have, once the challenge is issued, have there be animosity or like he's die hard on beating him or whatever. But it does seem like they've got nothing. He's got nothing but respect for Apollo.
Yeah.
He doesn't like hate him and doesn't treat him like the villain. I think what the crux of it is he's trying to better himself and he's trying to earn respect. But he's not like, he doesn't treat Apollo as an antagonist. He's more like Apollo is an obstacle, but he still has tremendous respect for him. So and they never get rid of that.
I actually loved that scene as well because, as you said, Rocky sticks up for Apollo. And he's like, he took his shot and became champ. What shot have you ever took? And the barman goes, if you're not happy with your life, that's fine. And he says, stick up your business. He's like, you want me to take a shot? Fine, I'll take a shot. And has a shot of whiskey. I love that.
That was amazing. Yeah. There is one line I find odd from Apollo Creed, though, when he says, Apollo Creed meets the Italian Stallion. Sounds like a damn monster movie. I don't know what monster movies he's watched, but some weird Italian monster films, maybe?
I don't know if this is true, but supposedly Italian Stallion was Rocky's porn name, so maybe he's watched a few of them.
I mean, that would be a horror film, Stallone just whipping out his Italian Stallion. You're just like,
There are some great lines here. I mean, even just simple ones like, do you know what you are? You're a tomato. Your nose is broke. How's it look? It's an improvement.
Yeah, that's a good line.
I really like that because I think that was earned that he broke his nose. That was really earned because they constantly talk about his nose. They were like, I think, is it Mickey that's the first one to talk about it? Where he's like, it looks like you didn't break your nose, like he's criticizing him. And he's like, you've never even broken your nose, whatever. And he even talks about it to Adrian. I've been punched in this nose 17 times and it's never broke. I really like that.
Yeah.
He fucking busts his nose, and he's like, it's an improvement. Like, it's good. It's a good thing. It's kind of a tongue-in-cheek. Yeah.
Rocky is at the press conference and he says, and then he's asked to speak, and he says, oh, wait a minute. I just want to say hi to my girlfriend. Okay. Yo, Adrian, it's me, Rocky. Look at this. You believe all this? You got a microphone and all that stuff.
No, it's great. That is.
Yeah. And then he somehow starts a fight after that.
Yeah, he swears at the guy, because they start pulling him away. He's like, I'll take your head off.
One line that I did like actually there, and it's a really subtle line, and then Bill Conti's music comes in just to emotionally improve it, is when he leaves Adrian's house and he says to her, like he's pretending it like the way Apollo spoke and joked about him, that it doesn't bother him, and then he just steps outside and he's like, I said about that stuff not bothering me? I did. And then he just walks off out of shot, and the music behind it is just really emotional.
Moment,
I also like the line I was going to say earlier is when he's walking. It's a great scene as well, but when he's walking Little Marie, you hang about with stupid people, you end up with stupid friends. So you hang about with yo-yo people, you end up with yo-yo friends. And
yo-yo friends sound cool. I mean, they must have a lot of yo-yos. I don't know.
That'd be pretty amazing. Well, your friends are human yo-yos.
That's another part where you can see he's a bit silly as well, because he says that he's like, you hang about with yo-yo people, you get yo-yo friends, and he's like, see, it's simple mathematics. There was no sums at all. There was no numbers.
That's weird. But I think my favourite line is when Mickey is training him, and he says, "You'll be able to spit nails, kid, like you guys say. You're gonna eat lightning, and you're gonna crap thunder."
Yeah,
that was a good one.
That was funny.
He's got so many good lines.
You got a favourite, Boaz?
Yeah, so where he was talking to Adrian, after he goes to the arena and realizes that this is really all about Apollo, and he probably doesn't stand a chance. And he tells Adrian I just don't think I can do it. She's like, "What? Beat Apollo?" It's like, no. So I like the last bit where he goes, "I know I might not win, but, all I want to do is go the distance. Nobody's ever gone the distance with Creed. And if I can go the distance, and that bell rings and I'm still standing, I'm going to know for the first time in my life that I weren't just another bum from the neighborhood." I think that was just my favorite.
Yeah, you always go for the emotional ones.
Yeah. It's a good line.
Actually, see on that line, and then the scene with little Marie when he's saying to her, "They don't remember you; they remember your reputation." In other words, don't be a whore. Basically, is what he's saying.
Yeah.
But that line there is a great line. They don't remember you; they remember your rep, because it's all about his reputation with Apollo.
Yeah.
So even that's I guess that's what the whole film's saying as well.
Yeah.
You got a favourite, Gary?
I think I've already said it.
Okay.
I do like that line about you're going to eat lightning and crap thunder.
Yeah.
I quite like that.
Screenplay score, Boaz? What should we go for?
I'd go pretty high for the screenplay. I think it's like really masterfully done.
9s?
Yeah, let's go a 9.
I'm willing to go, I don't know, it's very good.
What, high 9s?
Like 9.3, 9.4 or something?
Okay, I'm willing, yeah.
Just for the simple fact that I just didn't think I would cry at this, and I did somehow. And I think a lot of that is because of the writing, not necessarily the music. Yes, the music's great, but just the journey Stallone goes on as Rocky is just pretty remarkable for such a low budget film.
I think it's a great journey. There are great characters, they're great lines, and also like it's very authentic. I think even the small things of just how they talk to each other, it just feels very authentic. Like, it just feels like this is how I've never been to Philly, but this feels like this should be how Philly is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it just feels authentic as well. So I'm pretty good with a high score.
9.5?
How about 9.3? Yeah.
Okay. 9.4?
Okay. Okay, 9.4. That's it.
Okay. We get very precise here, Gary.
I love it. I love it.
Gary, what's your score for screenplay?
I think I'll go 9.5.
Yeah?
I think I will, yeah. It's really strong. And the fact that even, the film went on to win Oscars, Stallone had never really written a script before. Yeah. Maybe some porn scripts, who knows? It's solid, and it's inspired a lot of people in the world. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure when Sylvester Stallone walks down the street, people shout Rocky. They don't shout Stallone. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. Sometimes Rambo.
I was thinking what his porn film would be called based on Rocky. Like maybe it was a porn script and he tidied it up.
Yeah, just make it a boxing film instead.
Like maybe Cocky.
Stop it.
What, sloppy? I don't know.
Right. Acting then. I do like Sylvester Stallone's performance in this. I just like the way he walks. He kind of like skips along the street all the time. His shoulders go up and down all the time. Even when he's trying to ask Adrian out after Paulie chucks the turkey and pisses her off, Rocky doesn't know what to say. In front of the door, but Rocky does this like light shadow boxing, like he's really nervous because he has no clue what to say to her. It's just a great little detail he puts in there. It's like he's boxing like all the time, in his performance.
Yeah. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe when he's not got the bouncy ball, he has to shadow box, and he keeps the bouncy ball to stop him doing it all the time. It's like if I don't carry this, it's like people who try and stop smoking start carrying like a lollipop or a pen, something. It has to be in their hand.
Yeah.
My favorite scene actually is definitely in terms of acting is when Rocky and Adrian arrive at his place after their date, and Rocky encourages Adrian to come into his apartment. And she says no several times, but eventually comes in. Rocky encourages her to sit down and says no. And she says she's uncomfortable and wants to go. Rocky stops her a little bit against her will. But then Rocky takes her glasses and her hat off and they kiss. And it's incredibly tender and slow. Rocky is not a creep at all, and he's not forcing himself on her, which could easily have happened in somebody else's hands. Then it becomes semi-passionate with like Adrian gasping. It's just a really well-handled, beautiful scene. And I like how slow it is as well. I think one of the scenes that makes Rocky so incredibly popular, I think. And it's actually Sylvester Stallone's favorite scene of the whole Rocky franchise as well. Nice. I read. Yeah, it's just wonderfully acted for me.
I think it's a great scene as well. And like Rocky is such an intimidating like figure, like presence. he's like a second-rate loan shark, they call him. He supposedly goes about beating people up, and there's just this side to him that Adrian brings out. This love side, and you get to see a whole other side to him that he probably wants to show that he's got.
Yeah,
he's affectionate.
Yeah, that's the word, isn't it? But he doesn't really do it in like a really dominating way or creepy. It's so like genuine from Stallone's performance, which I think is incredibly hard to do. And there's a great moment throughout most of the film. You get the sense that Rocky has no chance of winning against Apollo Creed, but when a reporter interviews Rocky in the meat fridge and he's beating up and hung up ribs,
beating his meat,
Apollo's trainer Tony Britton is the only one watching the TV and watching Rocky box, and he says he looks like he means business, and Apollo just says off screen, "Yeah, I mean business too," completely disregarding what his trainer is seeing.
But he means show business, which is great. He's like, "Yeah, I mean business too. I mean to make us a lot of money."
Yeah.
And then just watching Tony Burton's reaction, you immediately get the sense that this could be a close fight, that he could win. You get that very much from the trainer's performance. So I do quite like that. It's because it's one of the very, very few moments leading up to the fight where you think, oh, okay, Rocky could win this.
I like the scene with him and Mickey when Mickey shows up to his apartment. I like the acting from like Mickey, who's trying to be genuine. I think seems unnatural for him because he's really aggressive and what have you. But he's trying to be genuine. Stallone just not accepting the effort that he's doing, it's like listening to him, but he just doesn't want to listen to him, like trying to ignore him, and he's kind of visibly like trying to hold back his frustration.
He looks and feels like a boxing trainer, like the way he speaks, moves, and talks. Speaks, moves, and trains basically. Even we scenes where like two people come in to get Rocky's autograph, and he's like, "Get the hell out of here! Move your little chicken asses!" Like you just feel like he's pissed off, and he's just trying to do business. He's great.
Favorite performances, Stallone all round, or anyone picking anything different?
I think I'd go Mickey.
Mickey?
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah. I think Mickey's really good. I would have preferred like more scenes with him and Stallone, which obviously you're going to get in more of the sequels. But but he was good. I think I might go with Stallone.
Yeah, same. I think again he just brings such lightness of touch, certainly in the scenes he has with Adrian. A lot of really real subtle stuff. They're saying so much with their acting compared to what they're actually saying. Boaz, should we go straight 9 for acting score? Any objections to that? Or was that too high or too low?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, man. Maybe an 8.8?
8.9?
Yeah, right. Yeah, 8.9.
It sounds like you have some issues. What?
No. I genuinely do like it. I don't know. It's just a gut reaction of just.
Okay.
I'm not sure. It's one of those things I can't really explain. Like I think it's great.
Okay.
But my gut is just not saying up to a 9. But like my gut is saying an 8.8. But if you want to blow it up to a 9, I'll be fine.
Let's go 8.9. Yeah. 8.
Okay.
Gary, what's your acting score?
I'm going to go a 10 because no matter who's on screen, like, from Apollo Creed's trainer to Apollo Creed's manager to like Paulie, even the guy that owns the pub, everybody like just does their part to a T. There's no one you can fault in it.
Even the fucking loan shark guy's driver, he's a real he's a great actor.
He actually had some great lines. Like, "Remember what I told you? What'd you tell me? Take her to the zoo." Like he just had really good. Like you're just like, "Oh, you bastard."
Yeah, that was good.
Right, let's add up the scores then for Rocky. Rocky gets a very impressive 54.8 out of 60, which certainly whoops the Demolition Man's ass.
Yes.
Dude, you should have said it demolishes the Demolition Man. That would have been a better.
All right.
God, I come up with the puns. You.
I like it.
Yeah.
Next episode, then, as Salem's Lot was supposed to come out in September, but it's now been moved to April 2023. But it was too late to change it, so we're still going with that film. And we're going to talk Stephen King adaptations. So that'll be very exciting. I've been very keen to talk horror movies for a while. It's been way too long. Gary, this is your chance again to talk about your podcast and where we can find you.
We are all on all good podcast apps. So wherever you listen to your podcast, you'll probably find us there. It's Choose Film Podcast. You can also follow us on Twitter at Film Choose or on Instagram at Choose Film Podcast.
Cool. Also, we should have guests for next week as well with the Comfort Film Pod as well. Gary, you have been amazing. It's been such a fascinating conversation with you. Thank you very much for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Two great Stallone films to talk about. Loved it.
Bye-bye.
Right.
And it's bye-bye from Boaz. The shepherd of the podcast can go sort out his sheep, I guess. No, that's wrong. It's his police officers. Yeah, that's it. Bye-bye.
I'll demolish those sheep.
That's it for part 2. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Check out part 1 if you haven't done so already. But don't stop there. Get involved and tell us what your favourite films are relating to the episodes. Send us a DM or comment on Instagram and TikTok at Film vs. Film Podcast, for Twitter at FVF_podcast. If you do, we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. If you're feeling really generous, you can buy us a one-off coffee at our Buy Me a Coffee account. Remember, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. Pod signing off.